You're learning how to grow smarter with your time and your marketing. Now it's time to grow smarter with your numbers too. Ready for the next move in the Grow Track? It's time to take a hard look under the hood of your business. In this session, you'll learn how to use real data, not just gut feeling, to uncover hidden efficiencies, missed revenue, and untapped growth opportunities in your business. Business coaches Jason Stenith and Eddie Witri will show you where money's slipping through the cracks and how to fix it with real systems and data. Then, Housecall Pro co-founder Roland Lightenberg and home service business owner Chris Olsen will show you how to turn your own Housecall Pro data into smarter, faster decisions that drive real results.
Say hello, Jason.
How's it going? I'm Jason Stenith. Eddie, thank you for that introduction.
You bet. I'm Eddie Witri. We're both from the great state of Colorado. And what we're going to talk about first, in business, right, there are often profit leaks. And they come in ways that most of the time are based really in discipline. And when you think about profit leaks in the business, for me, what I think about first is I think about discounts and too many discounts. And I think about whether on the phone or with your sales team out on site and doing an estimate, there are ways that kind of profit leaks out. And the way it really leaks out, for me, to sort of kick it off, is in rapid discounting, sort of when our teams and our techs don't really understand and our sales teams don't really understand the value proposition and what we're offering between the heritage and the work and between our 5-star ratings and the fact that we do work that people really love, they get kind of afraid on site, and when they do that, they frequently just automatically put in a discount and come back and say, well, I had to because I wasn't going to get it. And more often than not, it's from people truly not understanding the kind of work we do and how well we do it. What do you find?
Yeah, exactly. In the trades, home services business, it's so easy to be up against so many other companies and competing against them that your salesperson or even maybe yourself is going and saying, well, we can actually probably do that for a little less, or we could continue to drop here, and then just so that you're making your price target or your price so attractive that that's how you think the customer is going to buy, rather than really selling a value option to what you're selling and why you're selling it. Instead of just constantly discounting, there's other things that could be doing is maybe offering additional services that aren't as expensive as that major discount that you've just given this customer. So I kind of took that in a different way there, Eddie. But yes, discounting and offering too many savings can actually just kill profits.
Yeah, and I think it's also this. I think we can do this job faster this time, or I think this underestimate of job timelines and how much it really takes to do a quality job.
Right, and I honestly, if you've been doing this for long enough, you will be able to look at a job, and my background is primarily in HVAC. So I can see a job and I know that what my estimators or my salespeople should be quoting this job when I see pictures or whatnot. I already know. I'm like, okay, this section of this job will probably take a minimum of 4 hours. And if you're not going in there and you don't have a trained staff that is actually capable of understanding the job and not just putting out bids to get the job, you're going to end up in a situation where you now have a job that was bid at something that should have probably been twice the price of what they're selling it for, just because they want to close this job and get their commissions. So not understanding, not being in understanding exactly what this job entails is a huge profit killer as well.
We see that in concrete too. When a salesperson doesn't truly understand egress and ingress and how labor comes together and really understand the operation, right? They're kind of going from a per square foot that's kind of in the middle, and it might be a job where we get totally underbid because, that driveway is right there versus a back patio. And I see it over and over that if we'd slow down and really take our salespeople on a job site and really show them what expensive jobs look like and why they need to be bid a little bit higher, and why jobs that we totally were beat out on because just not having that understanding that the truck can pull up right here and we're ready to go.
Exactly. It's not every job is exactly the same. I am a firm believer in flat rate pricing, but that comes into more of a repair situation or a service situation than a new install or a new project is kind of where I'm going with that. So you really have to have discipline yourself in knowing what your project is going to entail from your experience, or you need to make sure that your salespeople are trained up and are talking to your install team and saying, hey, this is what I saw here. Did I quote this right? Having them work together after jobs. Install would be like, well, you missed this and that killed us. We were probably 2 hours behind schedule on this, right? And this is just the communication that can help prevent these types of problems.
I know you're a big advocate of staying on top of your price book. Why don't you let folks know about that?
Absolutely. So when you definitely want to make sure that you're at the right price point for your most expensive parts, equipment, materials. And you also want to make sure that you are making your distributors or the people where you're buying your equipment from, keeping them honest and making sure that they're competitive across the industry as well. Because you don't want to, just because this company is, I get all my stuff here, it's a one-stop shop. I want to I'm good with paying an extra $100 on this product. Well, if you think about it, hey, how many times are we using that a year, right? Maybe we're using this particular product 50 times a year. I mean, that adds up pretty quick, $5,000 because you just didn't want to argue it with your supply house of why they're charging that, or because you didn't want to just go stock up at the other place and save yourself that additional money. So keeping them honest, and what that ended up doing is also make sure that your price book is up to date so that you're not losing on quotes.
100%.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about sort of this next stage of really empowering, and we both have the privilege of working in coaching, and really to empower our pros to be able to grow, right? And a big part of that for me is financial clarity, right? It gets back to the basics. When you look at so many teams in athletics who win, they spend a lot of time on getting the base things right. And so for me, accurate financial tools, and it's not just the P&L, it's cash flow, it's the balance sheet, it's accounts receivable, and getting to a place where we have not just accurate information, but we start to work through that and really understand how it interacts. And as you're thinking about growth and you're thinking about clarity, how do you really sort of view that so that you can plan for growth? What's your mindset on that?
So what I really like about the Housecall Pro business coaching program is, before I actually got into the program and started coaching pros, I had my own kind of more of a basic spreadsheet, if you will, of my own trend forecasting. And then when we got in with coaching, they give me this amazing trend forecasting worksheet that I'm just thinking, like, wow, how did I ever live my life without this? But I really enjoy using that tool and looking into the seasonality of the industry. And that's how I can then I can look at my marketing budget and how that is actually translating to my seasonality. Why is it seasonal? Yes. And coming back always weather, HVAC. Okay, I know that we're going to be busy in summer. What is my cost of acquisition for a new customer? And I love to keep in touch with all of my existing customers as well. So I know where I need to spend that money and how I need to use those dollars to increase my bottom line. Coming back to the profit and loss sheet, you should really have that updated monthly by your accountant, and I highly recommend, or your bookkeeper, and making them send you those reports, not just saying, hey, I'm going to log in there whenever I want. That also is going to tell you quickly what your material costs are, what your labor costs are, what your top line revenue is, what your end of the day net income is. So really, it's all coming back into the fact that you need to know your numbers in order to forecast and know how possible what growth is possible for you and your business, rather than just throwing a dart at a board.
And I think if you haven't done this before, there's this belief, gosh, I could never figure this out, and I don't know how to get started. And I think it just starts at the start, right? You start to get control of different parts of the business, and as you become more and more comfortable and more fluid with it, then you start, very much like you're talking about seasonality. You're looking at your current customers, and there's so much gold in those customers, right? They already like you. They already trust you. Service plans, major deal for you.
It's the service plan programs with Housecall Pro has been great for customer retention, and also making our techs really build really strong relationships with our customers, which is then ultimately added into just have great customer satisfaction, more 5-star reviews, more referrals across the board, just a better relationship throughout the entire lifetime of the customer.
Of that customer, yeah.
Exactly.
It's interesting when we, in those plans, we can become advocates, right? And we on their side of the fence, really participating in how to, for most people, their home is their most expensive physical asset that they have, and to be a real partner in that. So that's why you might not be as profitable as you think. It might be profit leaks. It might be understanding your systems and your operations. It might be not having financial clarity. So let's shift from guesswork to AI.
Housecall Pro is coming out with some really exciting new AI tools.
And that's exactly what Roland and Chris are going to talk about next.
All right, how's it going? My name is Roland Lightenberg. I'm one of the co-founders of Housecall Pro, and I lead the innovation team. And we've got Chris Olsen here from Northwest Moss Removal. We're excited to talk a little bit more about some practical ways that we can use Analyst AI out in the field.
Awesome, happy to be here.
All right, so we just heard the coaches talking a little bit about what different things business owners should be looking at when it comes to their numbers. I think being able to weave Analyst AI on top of that allows you to get to those numbers much, much quicker. What kind of numbers are you looking at, Chris, on a day-to-day basis, maybe like a week-to-week basis?
Yeah, so I look at a variety of numbers and KPIs. Some of the biggest ones are obviously revenue brought in per day, revenue brought in per employee, average job size or average ticket size, depending on what you want to call it. And I'm also looking at things like efficiency scores for employees and kind of trying to figure out exactly how profitable and how efficient we are every day.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about how, job size tickets versus revenue per employee. What are you actually looking for there? Are you looking for trends? Are you looking for snapshots? Are you looking for some goal number, some North Star metric that you set like ahead of time? What are you looking for?
Yeah, a little bit of all of the above. I think the number one thing I'm looking for is I'm trying to figure out, A, how efficient my crews are, because obviously if you're more efficient and kind of more put together as a company, you're going to have more profitability usually along with that. And
when you say efficiency, just for the people that are like, oh, well, what does efficiency mean? Are you looking at billable labor hours versus actual labor hours? Tell me a little, like, how does that deconstruct?
Yeah, so I'm looking at hours spent driving versus hours spent on the job site, billable hours versus how many hours we were actually on site. I'm looking at hours worked per day per employee compared to how much revenue that employee or that crew brought in, and kind of just comparing all those numbers as a whole so that I can look for trends or leaks in efficiency or leaks in profitability. So that way when you see those numbers trending, you can either see it's a red flag and make an adjustment, or you can say, hey, this worked really well, we should do that more.
Not everybody has crews. A lot of our pros are just on site by themselves. So it's a little easier to kind of calculate those. But when you're calculating crews, are you splitting it up? If there's 2 people, 50-50, 3 people, 33, 33, 33, or are you doing it, where you have like a lead and then a helper kind of a model? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so all of my crews, with few exceptions, are crews of 2, a crew lead and an apprentice. I factor them in as 2 people and I look at their numbers 50-50. But what I'm really looking at is the total of 2 of those people put together. Because for us, we average out like our billable labor based on the average of cost the crew lead, cost the apprentice put together. So I'm looking at that total number of 2 employees on a truck. And you can use the word truck instead of crew, like how much am I bringing in per truck or per day, per crew, or per truck.
That makes sense. And in your profession, so you're doing moss removal, you're doing exterior cleans, you're doing a lot of maintenance style jobs. Are you looking at different job type profitability as well? And are there any, like, what's your most profitable job and how do you think about that and how do you get more of them?
Yeah, well, I would say one of the biggest things is we're looking at profitability per service type, and then we're also looking at profitability and efficiency with each service as well. Because a good example is we make a lot more per hour doing roof cleaning and moss removal and algae remediation, but those jobs are usually once a year or every 3 to 5 years. Whereas something like window cleaning, we're a little bit less profitable per hour, but you have to factor in the volume of a lot of our window cleaning clients. We're going there once a month, once a quarter, sometimes even every 2 weeks. So you have to look at it as a volume number too. You might be a little bit less profitable per hour, but that service as a whole is consistent recurring revenue, consistent recurring profit if you're structuring it correctly.
Yeah, and are you looking at these numbers in isolation, or is this something you're going to be putting on some sort of dashboard in the office, like so the techs can also see that, or how are you actioning on these numbers?
Yeah, so I'm looking at each data point individually, but I'm also pulling them all together to try and look at the overall efficiency. So a good example is if you have a week where you do $10,000 in revenue and then a week where you do $8,000 in revenue, and you had the same number of jobs, same number of techs on the road, same number of employees, you can look at it and say, okay, was my average job size lower? Was my efficiency lower? Were we driving more and on-site less? You can use those different data points together to find trends and figure out where the leak in efficiency or leak in profitability is coming from.
Yeah, so do you have like a baseline number you're always trying to hit, and does the team know that number so they can see if they're above or below there, and that's kind of what your weekly goal is set at?
Yeah, I try not to get too into the minutia with the team because sometimes it's overwhelming, but I do tell them like, hey, we shoot for X amount of revenue dollars per day. For my crews, it's $1,475 per truck. And I'm also looking for an average job size of between $600 and $800. And a lot of times the guys know that if they're out on a job and the ticket is for $800, but they add an extra $200 to it, they get that commission on the extra upsell, and it increases the average job size, increases their revenue for the day, and they know that helps them, but also helps the business.
I think that's a great golden nugget, because if you can let your crews know how their time and how they get paid factor into just the overall scheme of the business and how they make more money themselves, it makes them be a little more conscientious about, taking that extra truck stop break somewhere, dilly-dallying at that customer home and spending 30 minutes talking to, homeowner Sally. There's probably like a right amount of time, who knows what it is, but time is money.
Yeah, well, and when you know your numbers of your business really well and you can communicate them to your employees, it means that you can directly show them how what they do every day affects the success of the business. And if you run a business where you tie company success to employee success, it means that they make more, the company makes more, you're able to provide better trucks, better equipment, better pay, better benefits, whatever it might be, whatever is important to your employees. But it's hard for them sometimes to see the big picture when all they see is I do X, Y, Z, I get a paycheck. If they understand the numbers of the business and you can show them how their actions and how their efficiency directly ties to the success of the business, it can drastically improve employee efficiency and a lot of times improve employee satisfaction too.
Yeah, all that has to do with just alignment. And that's a great golden nugget, which is, when people can see their own success, they will carry the banner forward in the way that you started the business, which makes a lot of sense. Your business in the Pacific Northwest, it must be fairly seasonal when you guys are doing certain types of jobs. How are you looking at reporting KPIs? How are you using Analyst AI to find some numbers or trends that you're trying to either spot?
Yeah, so one of the things I do is I'll pull numbers for revenue earned from different services at different times of the year. So for example, like there are certain services we do all year round. We can clean windows 12 months out of the year unless it's super crazy below freezing. Similar with roof cleaning. We can blow off a roof, clean gutters, do moss treatments unless there's ice and snow on the roof or it's blowing so hard with the wind that it's not safe. But we're much more efficient at certain services during certain times of the year. Good example is moss removal. In the middle of the winter when the moss is green, thick, really hard to remove, it takes 4 hours to clean a 2,000 square foot house. Whereas in the summer, it takes 2 hours because the moss is dry, crusty, and crumbly, comes right off. So you have to look at, we're charging the same amount in the winter as we are in the summer. Yep. Should we be? Should we be increasing prices in the winter? Should we be scheduling more or less work? Should we be more seasonal about when we offer that service? It lets us pull that data and use Analyst AI to kind of look at the numbers and trends to make decisions about how are we going to change and adapt to seasonality.
That makes sense. And I think for all the pros that are out there listening in all the different verticals, there's going to be different seasonal trends for all of your businesses. So when you're looking at things, try to use a little bit of your logic brain and don't just rely only on AI to spit out numbers. Because if you're looking at numbers, you're going to be like, holy crap, we're doing so well in the summer and then we're just not doing so well in the winter. But in reality, yeah, sure, moss is probably pretty darn hard to take off if it's like fresh and green and stuck onto the house.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about, when you're thinking as you're growing your business, you're looking at different like lead sources, marketing sources. You clearly have a ton of reviews for your business, so you're getting a ton of organic. But how are you using maybe Analyst AI to think about your different lead sources or marketing channels, and where you step on the gas pedal a little more and when you put on brakes?
Yeah, I think the number one thing is I like to pull reports about our conversion rates per lead source. So if I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to upgrade my marketing budget from $5,000 a month to $10,000 a month. If I'm going to make that decision and I have to decide where those dollars are going to go, and I see that, hey, I can run ads on Yelp, but my closing rate is 20% and the lead quality is lower, or I can put it into Google LSA and my closing rate's 40% and my closing rate's better. Seeing that data in Housecall from like what our closing rate per lead source is or what our conversion rate is can help me decide where I'm going to put those marketing dollars.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of pros just listening in on this is, there's a lot of smaller micro actions that you're taking on your business at any given time. And if you're not aware of those numbers and you can't get them to them fast enough, or you're running manual reports, or you're sending it to some other place to get done, you can't quite pull those levers fast enough. Yeah. And when you're looking at your reports, are you mostly looking at things in arrears with Analyst AI, or are you also doing a mix of in the past and also a little bit in the future, like how your upcoming week's looking like?
Yeah, I try to do forecasting and I try to look at past data because at the end of the day, I've learned over and over that in business, being proactive is always better than being reactive. You have to analyze past data, but most of the time when I'm analyzing past data, it's so that I can make better predictions looking at the future.
So for those of you that are maybe a little apprehensive, haven't run reports before, like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to ask Analyst AI. I don't even know where to begin. What kind of tips would you give kind of someone that's just starting to dip their toes into this pool, this deep water here?
Yeah, what I would say is I would start small and I would look at just pick 2 or 3 data points that you think are the most relevant to what you're doing. For example, if you're a one-man show, just simply looking at billable hours versus time on the job site and maybe drive time would be huge. Because if you're only billing 3 hours for a job that consistently takes you 5 hours, you're consistently losing money. And just that one data point of how many hours am I billing versus how many hours am I actually on site? And if you're driving 4 hours a day and you're not getting paid for it, that's huge too. And then I would say the one other big data point that I think a lot of people overlook, and I think it's one of the most important, especially in service companies, is your average ticket size. I think the number one easiest way to add profit to a service company is to raise your average ticket. There's a lot of different ways to make more. You can charge more money, but if you can just go from every job being $500 to every job being $800, you're not doing any more driving. You're already on site. You're already there. So if you can raise your average ticket, that's the easiest way to add some profitability.
Yeah, that's such great insight because what people don't think about often enough is all the other time that you spend not billing. Mm-hmm. So gassing up the truck, getting the truck ready, making sure you've got the tools, equipment, doing parts and material runs if you're in a business that's parts heavy. All these things, you're not actually making money. And so looking at that just from a high level will show you what percentage of your hours you're actually billing versus not. And just improving that, even outside of job ticket, is going to up that efficiency really high. And if you can layer on just a little bit of a higher job ticket, whether it's increasing your prices, whether it's adding some other things to upsell, leaving estimates behind to follow up during the slow seasons on something else and calling those customers back. Hey, I was here last 6 months ago. I also saw maybe you needed your windows cleaned, or maybe you needed the siding cleaned. It's probably the moss has grown. In your case, all super important. Hopefully that helps you kind of dip your toe into that AI report-driven waters there. Yep.
The numbers don't lie. Thank you, Jason, Eddie, Roland, and Chris for breaking down how to grow smarter by really knowing your numbers. Now it's time for a short break, but stay close. Next, we'll show you how to bring everything you've learned together with Housecall Pro's newest AI tools to help you build, grow, and scale smarter and faster. And to close it all out, Navy SEAL and best-selling author Jocko Willink will take the stage for a powerful keynote, and he'll be answering your questions live.